Iran struck a tanker transiting through the Strait of Hormuz as the United States fired at Iran for a 10th consecutive night.
A US federal judge has approved a €1.3 billion settlement between Anthropic and a group of authors, closing the largest copyright class in US history.
Iran said on Tuesday it struck US military assets in Bahrain and Kuwait, targeting air defense systems and a radar at different US outposts. Iran's armed force also attacked a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, forcing the crew aboard to abandon the vessel. The IRGC said it had stopped the tankers that were transiting through what they called an unsafe southern route of the strait after explosions caused fire on the vessels. On its end, the United States military announced it completed its 10th consecutive night of strikes against Iran, targeting sites in an effort to counter Tehran's ability to attack ships passing through the strait. In recent weeks, fighting has intensified significantly between the two sides, bringing traffic through the waterway almost completely to a halt and pushing oil prices up. On Monday, Iranian Interior Minister Eskander Momemi arrived in Pakistan for official talks. His visit comes as Pakistan continues its mediation efforts to end fighting between the US and Iran, although the intention of Momemi's trip remains unclear.
A Lebanese military convoy deployed Tuesday in a southern village partially occupied by Israeli troops as part of a framework agreement reached between the two countries last month. The US announced on Monday the beginning of operations in 3 villages, part of a so-called pilot zone. In one of the villages, Lebanese soldiers will operate near an Israeli-occupied area. The mayor says he is concerned for the safety of his town given the nearby presence of Israeli soldiers. He's waiting for the Lebanese army to tell locals whether it is safe to check on their homes.
احنا بعد ما يعطينا اذن الجيش بالدخول على زوطة الغربية كمواطنين بنفوت لانه الجيش موجود، بس بنطل بنشوف شو في داخل زوطة الغربية وبنحمل حالنا ومنفل. استقرار ما فينا وما بنقدر اصلا، ما بنقدر لا بكل التفاصيل، ما بنقدر. مثل ما قلت لك البنى التحتية كلها معدومة، البيوت كلها بالارض. جرفوا الطرقات الرئيسية، جرفوها فلحوها يعني.
The Lebanese army urged the residents of the village not to return before the security situation is calm. However, an Israeli military official said withdrawal of Israeli troops had not yet started. The deployment comes as Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun meets with US President Donald Trump in Washington.
An LPG tanker sailing across the Black Sea toward a Ukrainian port caught fire off the coast of Romania. Romania's president said that the incident was most likely linked to Russia's war in Ukraine. The ship was carrying more than 3,790 tons of propane. It had departed from the port of Alexandria in Egypt and was heading to the Ukrainian port of Reni, situated on the Danube River. The vessel was carrying a crew of 17 members. 3 of them required emergency medical care. In Ukraine, a Russian drone killed 3 people in a residential neighborhood in Sumy, according to the regional governor. Russian forces carried out a series of strikes on the city and attacked firefighters as they attempted to extinguish a fire. In Russia, a fire broke out during the night near a thermal and power station in the city of Lipetsk. Human rights campaigners, protesters and Italian politicians expressed outrage after a man died while under police restraint as he pleaded for help in Bologna. Abderrahim Fakir, a 42-year-old from Morocco who moved to Italy when he was 5, died on Sunday while being forcibly held down by 2 police officers. The incident triggered a protest in Bologna on Monday. The Italian justice minister rejects the idea that there is any ICE-style model in Italy.
Andy Burnham became the UK's new Prime Minister on Monday, becoming the 7th Premier to preside over the country in 10 years as the UK's political turmoil continues. Starmer, who announced his stepping down just 1 month ago and speaking for the final time in his tenure of 2 years before tendering his resignation on Monday before the King, said his work is done and wished Burnham well in his mission to lead the country. Burnham was appointed by King Charles later the same day, inviting the former Greater Manchester mayor to form a government. Speaking for the first time as Prime Minister, Burnham said he wants to usher in a new era for the UK.
Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan, laying out a path from where we are now to where I believe we all want Britain to be, wherever we're coming from, whatever party we support. But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them.
Londoners who've become accustomed to high Prime Minister turnover as of late have expressed hope that Burnham will turn the tide, and even optimism that he could overturn the very thing that has divided the nation.
Well, I think he seems like a nice man from what I've seen from his campaigns up in Manchester. But I'm hoping that maybe I did hear that Andy Burnham might maybe bring us back into Europe, so you never know. That would be a good thing for the country, I think.
Burnham has been widely credited with positively transforming Manchester in his 9-year spell as mayor, a feat many are hoping he can replicate nationwide. Speaking outside 10 Downing Street, the newly appointed premier said his government aims to overhaul the education system, build more social facilities, and drag the UK out of economic decline.
A US federal judge has approved a 1.3 billion euro settlement between Anthropic and a group of authors, closing the largest copyright class in US history. The deal was approved on July 20 in San Francisco, rejecting objections from some authors who argued the payout was too small. The settlement, first proposed last September, resolves a class action filed by some writers in August 2024 who accused Anthropic of using pirated books to train its Claude chatbot. Under the deal, authors and publishers will each receive $3,000 from an estimated 500,000 works covered by the settlement. The case followed a June 2025 ruling which found that training Claude on lawfully acquired books qualified as fair use, but that storing millions of pirated books in a central library did not. As Anthropic welcomed the resolution, the plaintiff's lead attorney described it as the largest publicly known copyright recovery in history, while dozens of similar cases continue against OpenAI, Google, and Meta.
The European Commission fined AliExpress €550 million for failing to adequately assess and mitigate risks linked to the sale of illegal, unsafe and counterfeit products on its e-commerce platform. The Chinese platform's product compliance checks were also found to be vulnerable to abuse, with malicious traders allegedly misclassifying products to exploit less stringent requirements. According to the European Commission, large volumes of illegal products continue to circulate on AliExpress despite moderation efforts.
The company itself reported that almost 15 million illegal products were recommended last year to users in the European Union. We're mostly speaking about unsafe and counterfeit products, such as cosmetics, toys, clothes, or gadgets, to name just a few.
The fine is the latest development in formal proceedings launched in 2024 over a potential breach of the EU's Digital Services Act. AliExpress now has until the 20th of October 2026 to submit an action plan outlining how it will address the Commission's concerns.
Two tourists were injured on Tuesday morning after a knife attack at the entrance to the Acropolis archaeological site, one of the busiest tourist spots in Athens. According to the Hellenic police, the incident occurred at around 8 a.m. local time when a man attacked a couple of Greek-American tourists. As a result of the attack, the woman sustained a minor injury to her arm, while the man suffered a more serious wound to his leg. Officers from the Dias motorcycle unit arrived immediately at the scene and bandaged the injured leg to stem the bleeding, before an ambulance administered first aid and transported the tourist to the hospital. Shortly before the attack, the emergency police hotline had received a call about a man holding a knife and threatening passerby at the southern entrance opposite the Acropolis Museum. The assailant was subsequently overpowered and arrested by officers from the Athens Police Directorate as authorities investigate the circumstances and work to determine his motives.
These beaches in northwestern France are a site of global historical significance. That is why this stretch, just over 80 kilometers long, could be inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List in the coming days. It was here that more than 150,000 men from some 15 countries landed on June the 6th, 1944. More than 4,000 soldiers lost their lives that day, but the Allied landings represented a decisive battle in the liberation of Europe from Nazism. The nomination covers the 5 D-Day beaches, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword, as well as La Pointe du Hoc and the artificial harbour at Arromanches-les-Bains.
Donc ce site avec son port artificiel est présent sur la liste qui est proposée au classement des sites UNESCO, en plus des plages de débarquement, car on considère qu'avec le rôle qu'il a joué très important, on peut considérer que c'est l'équivalent d'une plage de débarquement, même si les troupes n'ont pas directement beaché sur la plage, mais ont transité à travers ce port.
This project, launched in 2008, could also generate significant economic benefits for the Normandy region. A 15% increase in tourism is expected if the designation is awarded. Nearly 1.8 million visitors travelled to the D-Day beaches last year. UNESCO will meet from July the 24th to the 27th in South Korea to reach its decision.